Welcome to Saturday Splash, the second annual fall mini conference of the Minnesota Association of Library Friends. My name is Loretta Ellsworth, and I'm a member of MALF's programming committee. I'm also a member of the Friends of the Heritage Library. If the pandemic hadn't intervened, we might all have met today at our newly remodeled and expanded library in Lakeville, perhaps another year. However, I think the biggest upshot to a virtual conference is that MALF can reach a much wider Friends audience than is ever possible with an in-person happening, no matter where it's held. We have registrants today from Dilworth to Duluth and from Austin to Appleton. Welcome to each and every one of you. At the end of our time together, look for a survey link. We'd greatly appreciate hearing what you think, not just of the content you heard today, but about the method of delivery too. Should MALF continue to lean into virtual programming, even when pandemic restrictions are long past? Should we reintegrate in-person opportunities? And if so, what kind would you like to see? For now, just keep those questions in the back of your minds. Please note also that recordings of the main segment in this morning's programming will be available tomorrow and in perpetuity on YouTube. You may find it easiest to navigate there from our website, mnlibraryfriends.org. Now I'll let you in on what you can expect this morning. First off, our speaker, Lorna Landvik, will grace us with a short keynote. I hope she takes a moment to share a bit or two about her latest book. It's called Chronicles of a Radical Hag with Recipes. I can confirm that it's every bit as delightful as the title suggests. We'll also have ample time afterwards for audience Q&A. Simply drop your questions for our guest into Zoom chat whenever they occur to you. My MALF colleague, Ann Hutton, will pop in after the keynote to steer that discussion. Lorna will also do the honors of emceeing our second segment, which I know is the main reason that some of you are here. Our annual Evy Nordley Award is almost as old as MALF itself. It remains our highest visibility recognition program. Lorna will speak to this more, but know right now that we're looking at a series of flash presentations, 4 of them, each less than 10 minutes in duration. Lorna and her infamous party horn will then announce our 2021 winner. As a wrap up, we will premiere a video montage recognizing the contributions and achievements of this year's Standout Friend volunteers. We have a dozen of them. While 60 to 90 seconds is not enough time to do each full justice, I'm sure you will leave impressed and inspired by their stories. Before we bid you adieu, I will pop again briefly to preview what's happening for MALF and to preview what's happening next for MALF and how you can get involved. Without further ado, allow me to introduce our featured guest. Lorna Landvik is best known to many as the pen behind many of the comedic staples of the Minnesota literary canon. Those include Patty Jane's House of Curl, Angry Housewives Eating Bonbons, and Best to Laugh. As already noticed, her latest is Chronicles of a Radical Hag with Recipes. Each of our Stand Up for Standout Friend honorees and Evy Nordley speakers today will receive a signed copy of Chronicles, among other goodies from MALF. If you'd like your own copy of Lorna's latest, see the chat section for a purchase link from our partnering bookseller. Lorna is also a vocal advocate for Minnesota's libraries and has personally visited too many to count. Lorna, welcome and take it away.
Thank you so much. Look what I have. Love, oh love, I've got library love. Love, oh love, got library love. In my childhood memory, there's a date that starred. That's the day I got my library card. When I was a little kite, to the Longfellow Library I would bike. my flourish. Whoops. Woo! Hello, everybody. Yes, that is from Adele's new album. I believe it's really zooming up the Billboard Hot chart. I am so happy to be here today celebrating with you, celebrating the Minnesota Friends of the Library, MALF, celebrating books, celebrating readers, celebrating writers. You know what Lady Bird Johnson said about libraries? She said, perhaps no place in the community is so totally democratic as the town library. The only entrance requirement is interest. It's been so fun for me in thinking about today to look into my memory bank and remember all the libraries I visited as a kid, in my youth, in my not so youth. As I sang, I did ride my banana bike to the Longfellow Library, which was a replica of Henry Wadsworth Longfellow's New England house. It was situated on the banks of Minnehaha Creek. I would ride there. I would enter the front door. A librarian was seated right there behind a staircase that was always roped off. I don't know what happened upstairs, but to the children's library, you would go left. To the adults library, you would go right. And there I would check out my books, put them in the basket of my banana bike, pedal across the road to the Minnehaha Falls Pavilion, where I would buy a huge brick of taffy wrapped in wax paper. I think it cost $0.25. I would ride back across the road down the grassy hill to the statue of Longfellow that's still there. And I would sit at the base of that statue with my books and my taffy. And I wasn't aware of the word nirvana yet, but I was there. And I just hope that I was careful with the taffy's stickiness. And my other library as a kid was the Nokomis Library, and that was built after they closed the Longfellow Library. And we were so excited on its grand opening. We pedaled our banana bikes. We all had those at that, the high handlebars, rode down there. And years later, one of the people who had attended that event with me gave me an old newspaper clipping of the grand opening that was in the paper. And we had our pictures taken. We were hanging out in the teenagers loft, even though we weren't quite teenagers, acting cool. That library has been so important to me, not just as a reader, but as a writer. Also bookmobiles. Oh, now there's a magic bus, the bookmobiles. When they would come, I was just so thrilled to, clomp up those metal steps, and I loved the smell. And, one of the fun things about a library is finding books you never knew you were looking for. And, we do tend to judge books by their covers. And for some reason, this book called Fail Safe had caught my 9-year-old interest, and I wanted to check it out, but the librarian kindly dissuaded me. She probably knew a book about nuclear war and espionage was not appropriate for a fourth grader. So instead, I went to the stacks where Caddy Woodlawn and Little House on the Prairie and Betsy Tacy and Tib and Ginny and Geneva were. I think of the libraries that I visited when I've been on book tours, and every time I have, spare minutes, I'll go visit the town libraries. I think of the library that I visited when I lived in San Francisco, and it was the North Beach branch. And the beat era was over, but it definitely had a beat poet vibe to it. I think it was almost mandatory that you had to wear a beret when you went in there. When I lived in Hollywood, I would roller skate down the Walk of Fame on Hollywood Boulevard and take a right on Ivar Avenue where the old Carnegie Library was. And because that was in the middle of Hollywood, you definitely had your Hollywood patrons. I'll never forget, I was in the biography section and this woman approached me and she, had so much makeup on, and it was like August. It was nowhere near Halloween, and her hair was like a pink white swirl on top of her head. And she just gave me a real dirty look, and I was taking out a biography of Errol Flynn, and she said, "He was my lover." That's who you'd meet on Hollywood Boulevard. My family and I years ago took a trip to Norway, and for a couple of days we were on the Hurtigruten, which is not really a cruise ship. It's like a working ship that stops in ports and delivers mail and supplies. And they had a lending library on that ship, which I would browse through and select things. And I found my book, Angry Housewives Eating Bonbons, there. And it was thrilling because I pictured, the grizzled old captain sitting on the bridge of the ship, as the Northern Lights danced behind him, oh yeah, those angry housewives, they're crazy. So I've always just loved libraries. They are sanctuaries to me. When I was in first grade, I learned how to read, and I learned how to read with the Dick and Jane books. See Puff Run, See Spot Run. And it was then and there that I determined to be a writer, because I one day wanted to write compelling prose like that. So my course was set. But I had also always liked to act. So in my 20s, I did live in Hollywood, seeking not just a movie career. I was actually gunning for Meryl Streep's career, but she didn't want to give it up. So I would write fiction, but short fiction. I would write monologues that I would perform in my stand-up comedy routines. I would write monologues for my friends, but I never felt I had the gravitas yet to write that which I had always wanted to write, novels. To survive out there while I was, being on stage and visiting agents, I would waitress, or I would use the typing skill that I learned in Mr. Welbus's 9th grade typing class, and I would temp. And to temp in LA is really fun. You get sent to places like the 1984 Winter Olympics, where I typed in the teleprompter room live as the scores came in for the sportscasters to announce. So I did have a lot of power. I could have changed scores now and then, but I kept to the script. I also temped at movie companies, record companies. And once my temp agent called me up and she said, we're sending you to the Playboy Mansion. And I said, no, you're not. I'm a feminist. I'm not going to go to the Playboy Mansion. And she assured me it was strictly clerical. So I decided, like Margaret Mead, to explore a secret culture. And it was the only job my husband ever begged to drive me to. But again, all I did was type. I typed labels for hundreds of video cassettes. I typed synopses. I got a fun job of watching old classic movies and then writing synopses. So I was writing, I was acting, I was visiting my local library. And then we had our older daughter. And her birth really changed physically, metaphorically, all those leaves, our lives, in that I had a dream when she was like 3 weeks old, that I was Gorbachev's temp secretary. And he had just come into power and nobody knew what the relationship between the superpowers were. And in my dream, a nuclear weapon had been set. When I think of it, maybe that book Failsafe imprinted on my brain somehow. But anyway, I woke up and I was so shook, and I stood over my little baby's crib thinking, what kind of world have we brought you into? And so that dream really began what turned out to be millions of steps. We joined a group of 1,000 people on the Great Peace March for Global Nuclear Disarmament. And we walked from LA to Washington, DC. It took us 9 months. We lived in tents. We had a movable city with a school bus, a daycare bus, a mail truck, food trucks, equipment trucks. And we also had a little lending library along with, because even when we were marching anywhere from 11 to 25 miles a day, we knew that, we would have to find our solace, our taking a breath by reading, by tent light. When we got back to Hollywood, I decided Meryl was, wow, she's doing a great job with our career. And we decided to move back to Minneapolis. And very conveniently, as we were packing up our old Chevy, these two women came into my head, and their names were Patty, Jane, and Harriet. And I thought, who are you? And they were very polite. They brought a title, Patty Jane's House of Curl. And I thought, well, whatever this is, I think it has something to do with a beauty salon, which was really out of my league because my mother never went to a beauty salon. She was very proud of her naturally wavy hair. Never gave me as a kid that which I coveted, a Tony perm. But I thought, well, these characters, they know something I don't. Although I also thought for a minute, maybe I'm supposed to write about, a house of curl, a place where you play kind of an odd winter sport. So I started writing. I spent Monday and Thursday nights at the Nokomis Library. They were open until 9 o'clock then, and my family understood those were my office hours. And I would diligently write to the sound of that, tinkling waterfall. And I wrote all by hand. It's really funny. I found the log because I kept track of how many words I wrote a day. And coming across that, I saw, whoa, one day I wrote 20 pages. I couldn't believe it. And then I realized, I was probably using some awfully big handwriting at that time. I gradually did transfer to a used computer. It was a rectangle that had a screen the size of a postage, a postcard. Ultimately graduated to a desktop and then to a laptop, which I love because I really do love to recline when I write. You can't really recline in libraries, but they offer so much more to write in. I would look around and see all these books and think, well, they did it, maybe I can do it. And to me, library, people say now, oh, well, we've got the whole world on our computers, on our phones, but you don't have a physical place without ads. Sure, you can be on your computer at the library, but you can also turn off that distraction of instant messages, of email beeps, and just absorb all that wisdom that's there. And it sounds woo, but I really do believe that so much is stored in those books as you sit there, and just through osmosis, you learn something. And that sounds kind of nutty, but I do believe Mr. Mark Twain said something similar. Do you know what Germaine Greer said about libraries? She said, a library is a place where you can lose your innocence without losing your virginity. I really do think that libraries, they're like a civic gift, an honor. They're honoring its citizens. Here's a place for you to sit with your thoughts, your dreams, to study, to create, to learn about things, to worry, to do everything in. COVID was a very odd time. And how's that for an understatement? You probably saw my picture earlier. I entered COVID a blonde. I left with white hair. I was really daunted with my writing when our state hit its lockdown. I didn't know what was ahead. I mourned that which was behind. Was that grammatically correct? I mourned that which was was behind. Well, you get my drift. And I couldn't write, but I could read. And that was such a solace. And the first big tome I read during COVID was Chesapeake by James Michener. And that's a big book. And in bed, I would open its pages and just get immersed in a different time in the history of Chesapeake Bay, its native population, the pirates that pillaged it, its indigenous foods and plants. And, I learned all about crabs, the kind that you eat. And it just took me away, as books will do, from my problems of the day. I think that I write as a reader. I want to write something that makes me want to turn the page, that makes me want to know more about the characters, that makes me want to laugh or cry. And I'm so thrilled that I'm published. It's such an honor. And my hope is that readers will feel the same or similar things to me when I write the books. Or, reading is subjective. They can think whatever they want. But for me, it's just a privilege to be a writer, and it's a privilege to be a reader. I did an event. It was one of my very first events in Houston, Texas. And I was on a panel with very esteemed writers, and they were giving beautiful speeches. And I thought, oh boy, maybe I should have written a speech, because I had just decided to tell a story, improvising audience suggestions. So I got on stage. I think I followed Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and I said, yeah, I was at the library the other day, and I had my backpack, and I was surprised to find inside it, and a guy yells out, a big yellow banana. So I had to create a story around that big yellow banana. And later that man approached me, and he introduced himself and his wife. And it turns out his story was so thrilling. He had had polio as a boy and was in an iron lung, skipped a grade, never learned how to read, yet managed to go all the way through high school. He employed over 500 people. He was a big business owner, faking reading. And it wasn't until their children were born that his wife noticed, anytime a child clamored on his lap, Daddy, Daddy, read to me, he didn't know how to read. So she taught him. And he was forever indebted to her. And she told me, we couldn't, I was afraid to drive with him, because he'd read everything. He'd yell out, stop. And I'd slam on the brakes. And that gift came to this gentleman years later, but it was a gift that he inhaled. And I think he must have read, he told me, like 500 books in 2 years. So that was thrilling. Do you know what Shakespeare says about writing in the Tempest? Me, poor man, my library was dukedom large enough. So what can I say more about libraries other than what Isaac Asimov has said? He says, it isn't just a library. It's a spaceship that will take you to the farthest reaches of the universe, a time machine that will take you to the far past and the far future, a teacher that knows more than any human being, a friend that will always amuse you and console you, and most of all, a gateway to a better happier, and more useful life. And I say amen to that. And I also have a poem about libraries. It's a little wild, so fasten your seatbelts. It's called If Librarians Were Honest, and it's by Joseph Mills. If librarians were honest, they wouldn't smile or act welcoming. They would say, "You need to be careful. Here be monsters." They would say, "These rooms house heathens and heretics, murderers and maniacs, the deluded, the desperate and dissolute." They would say, "These books contain knowledge of death, desire, and decay, betrayal, blood, and more blood. Each is a Pandora's box. So why would you want to open one?" They would post danger signs warning that contact might result in mood swings, severe changes in vision, and mind-altering effects. If librarians were honest, they would admit the stacks can be more seductive and shocking than porn. After all, once you've seen a few breasts, vaginas, and penises, more is simply more, a comforting banality. But the shelves of a library contain sensational novelties, a scandalous, permissive mingling of Malcolm X, Marx, Melville, Merwin, Millay, Milton, Morrison, and anyone can check them out, taking them home or to some corner where they can be debauched and impregnated with ideas. If librarians were honest, they would say, "No one spends time here without being changed. Maybe you should go home while you still can." So let's just have one more round of love, oh love, that library love. Come on, everybody. Love, oh love, that library love. My library card is still a precious ID, accessing knowledge, inspiration, and discovery. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you very much. And now I am happy to talk to you and chat with you. Hey, Ann. I can't hear you.
You know, after 18 months of Zoom, you would think we could remember to click 2 buttons. I'll blame you for being discombobulated. I was laughing so hard that I had to wasn't quite together there. So thank you. You gave me just what I needed on a Saturday morning. How did you land on the ukulele?
Well, you know, when I was a kid, I came from a musical family on my mother's side, at least. And she and her 7 sisters and 1 brother all played piano. And I didn't want to play the piano. You know, I'm not going to play the piano. So I played the flute. But you can't sing when you play the flute. So when my older daughter, we got her a piano. Actually, my mother gave her piano. And so I started teaching myself with her beginner books. Down by, cling, cling. And then I thought, well, I want something a little more portable. So the ukulele is just fun and it's easy. It's only got 4 strings. And I'm sure you were very, very impressed with my capabilities.
As a librarian, I'll take any song written honoring libraries and loving libraries. So thank you.
You're welcome.
We have a few questions that were submitted ahead of time, and I'll remind everyone that if you have questions that came about from the comments that Lorna shared with us, feel free. At the bottom of your screen, you'll find a toolbar, and you can click on chat and send the questions directly to me, send them to David as our technical wizard behind the scenes, or even share your question with the whole group, and then I'll convey it to Lorna so that she can answer. So thank you for that. And I also would remind you to look at the chat, because our chair of our program committee, Sue Grove, has put the link in so that you can certainly, while we love people going to libraries and checking out Lorna's book, we want authors to have book sales. So remember to think about buying her book as well.
Personal libraries are good too.
Yes. What is your writing routine now that you're an established writer? You talk about that first book and Monday and Thursday night being sacred to you, for your family. What is your writing routine now?
I love to hear from other writers what their processes are and how they write. And I always admire those who are, diligent about having their coffee maker set at 5:30, automatically. So they'll wake up to the smell of brewing coffee and they'll sit down and get to work. But I have to ease into the morning. I have to do the crossword puzzles. We'd get 2 papers. They get harder as the week goes on, so I waste more time. I have to take the dog to our beautiful Fort Snelling dog park. So it really isn't until the afternoon that I start saying, oh yeah, I should sit down. Or sometimes I choose the nights. I now don't write in libraries as much as I write at home, as I said, because I like to recline with my laptop, and they don't look kindly upon me when I, lie down on the library carpet, or lay down. I never got those 2 words straight. So my goal is to write every day. I don't have a time that I start. I don't have a time that I finish. Sometimes it's a couple hours. Sometimes it's 5 hours. Sometimes it's 20 minutes. And on the days that I don't write, which I try to keep few and far between, I just think that my walking is pretty contemplative. So when I'm with the dog, I'm just thinking about characters or situations. But I would love to be a little more disciplined, but that means cracking the whip a little bit harder. And I don't like that. So.
Advice that you would give to would-be writers? I know that there's always some lurking around in these library program rooms.
I would recommend reading as much as possible, not so that it takes away time from what you want to write, and be strict with yourself, not strict and tender. I think a lot of people stop because, oh, this is so bad. And if it's bad, you rewrite it. It's not etched in stone. So be tender with your mistakes, and okay, this will be better. If you're stuck, go to someplace else. And just a real inspiration for me was being in the library and just seeing all the books out there and knowing, oh yeah, they were written by people just like me. They had, head, shoulders, body. They were just like me. So don't be daunted. If you like a particular style of book, like a thriller, write that which you like. In fact, during COVID, I was reading a lot of thrillers, which I'll read occasionally in normal times, but I just was attracted to that high-paced escape. And sometimes it helps to have a log too, to keep track of what you write daily. And if it's just a paragraph one day, don't beat yourself up. Just, oh, well, okay, maybe things are processing in my mind and maybe I'll do an hour tomorrow. But you can get a lot done in little teeny chunks.
So you mentioned that when COVID started, that you were reading a lot, but not writing. We've all gone through this worldwide pandemic, and as we've been reading, we've found that there are people who have become more creative, people who have become less creative, because this has just been such a personal as well as societal change. What did you do to then, because I'm assuming that 18 months in, you're writing again.
Yeah.
How did you morph from needing to read but not write back into writing?
I just felt like a part of me was missing by not writing. And I don't like, I can stand for parts of me to be missing, like the bossy parts or the who stole my candy parts, but not the writing part. That it just meant too much to me. And I really had to, shake myself and, snap out of it. This is something that you love to do. You feel you have stories to tell, so get to it. And so I did. Yeah.
So one of the questions that we got ahead of time was, knowing that you're now a grandmother, congratulations.
Thank you.
Do you think it's changed your writing process? Has it changed your worldview that you now have this generational aspect in your life?
Well, that started out as a nice, light little question, and then you just delve deeper and deeper. So I would say yes to all of that. It's changed. Well, my worldview, because I have children too, has always been, oh, what's next for you? And, I'm a firm believer in evolution, but things seem to be regressing lately, and I really worry about that. I want, I've always been an activist. If there's something I feel I should march for, I will be there. And it's not just for the exercise, but it's thrilling that she's 2.5 now, and she loves books. And to take her to the Nokomis Library, where I grew up, where my daughters grew up, is thrilling. And she's a greedy reader too. She'll take book after book after book. And it's a thrill to read to her. And you get to visit that wonder through a small child's eyes, except when they ask you over and over again, read it again, the same book over and over. Oh, okay. But it's thrilling.
One of the questions that we got ahead of time was asking you to go back to the beginning. And I love the fact that you mentioned Patty Jane. Can you tell us the story behind that publication? How it went from 2 names popping into your head to going from that inspiration to a book that we all know and love?
Yes. As I said, the 2 women came to me with their full names and a title, and it has turned out in my career that 90% of the time, that's how a book starts for me, with the appearance of 2 or 3 of the main characters, who almost inevitably and very politely bring the title. So I'm given some clue about what I'm writing. My second book was called Your Oasis on Flame Lake. And when these characters brought that title, I thought, what's an oasis on Flame Lake? And yet I knew in the writing that I will discover, oh, it's about a nightclub a guy opens in his basement. So Patty Jane, I never outline everything. I didn't know what was going on. In the book, her husband abandons her right before she's about to deliver their child. And he's running along the river road, and he slips on some ice and crashes into a tree. And I didn't know what happened to him. So I thought, I'll get back to you. Just stay here in the snowbank. I don't know what's going to happen. So I went on, and in my writing, the more I write, the more I learn, the more I go back and change things or foreshadow things. So I find that surprise of writing a real treat. Like, wow, they did what? And I know that I'm in charge and I'm the boss, but it still feels as if the characters have minds of their own. And sometimes I'm just chasing after them, trying to corral them before they hurt themselves. So when I finished Patty Jane at the Nokomis Library, I would use their reference desk all the time to pour over the annually published Writers Market book. And that's an annually published book that tells you about publishers, agents, formats, query letters. So I wrote what I thought was a compelling query letter and mailed that to dozens and dozens of New York agents and got dozens and dozens. No, thank you. No, sorry. And finally, an agent said yes. And it took this particular agent 29 submissions to publishers, and I would ask to see their rejection letters. And so she'd mail them to me. And often I thought they were acceptance letters because they were very positive, but they'd always end with, unfortunately, we don't know what to do with this. Whereas I would think, how about publish it? And finally, a very small mom and pop press wanted it. They didn't pay advances, but at this point I was just thrilled somebody wanted it. But the pop of this mom and pop publishing company happened to be a former publisher of the Wall Street Journal. So he had many, many contacts, and I think got the book a lot more publicity than it would have from a different, another small press. And so while all that was happening, I didn't want to be tied up in the fate of Patty Jane because it took so long to sell it and then see it on the shelves that I wrote my second book. And so when I finish a book, I always want to move on to the next. And again, maybe it's because most of my characters are from Minnesota, but they're so polite and they'll come to me just as I need them. They're not like South Dakotans. No, I kid. I joke. Or Wisconsin. No, I'm kidding. So yeah, again, what I would recommend to writers out there is to persevere, because I really do consider my perseverance so integral in my getting published. And I didn't persevere in acting. If somebody said no to me, I'd, okay, thank you, hi. But in writing, I thought this is too important. I'm not going to let somebody's no be my final answer. So you decide when to say no. That's my motto. Well,
oh, that is momentous advice. Thank you. So you answered one of the questions without even knowing it. Do you choose your own book titles? So yes. But how about then the cover art, that which is hopefully face out in the bookstore or maybe even a library, that catches the attention? How are those? The book jackets sometimes are really zany. So how does the cover art, how does that package come together?
And I don't know why they're zany, because of course, that a lot of people confuse me for Proust. Those are the kind of books I write, but I've loved my recent covers. I think they're so fun. And as I said, people do judge books by their cover. So I'm often given a couple of the artists' renditions, and then I get to choose my favorite. And often it's also the favorite of the publisher. My titles, I've been able to keep all my titles. They wanted me to change Angry Housewives Eating Bonbons to The Whole Wide World Right There. And that's a sentiment that one of the characters has when she's outside with her kids playing. And, as a young mother, you think, wow, this is the whole wide world right there. And I thought, yeah, it's an apt sentiment, but I don't want it for a book title. So I really fought to have that. And I heard from a lot of people who said, well, I picked up the book because of the title. And then I've also heard from people who said, I almost did not pick up the book because of the title. And sometimes I think, oh, please, men, you know, I know that that may not be an inviting title to you, like Patty Jane's House of Curls. Yeah, we'll take that. Or Angry Housewives, or even, you know, Chronicles of a Radical Hag with recipes. But men, I write about people. And I do have to tell you, I did an event and the host told me that her husband read Chronicles of a Radical Hag with recipes. And he said it was the book that taught him the most about women he's ever read. I didn't pay her to say that. I was thrilled. And I just, you know, I love men, but I do think in comparison, women are a little more broad-minded in their tastes. You know, we'll read Jack Reacher books. We'll read Failsafe. Finally read Failsafe. But men sometimes seem to shy away from books with women as heroes. And I'm not saying the men on this Zoom webinar, because I know you're all enlightened men if you love libraries. But that's what I think. What was your question? About titles and
well, titles, but also the cover art.
Yes, and the cover art. And nowadays, you know, a lot of book covers, they don't do original art anymore. They do clip art. And so there have been times, for instance, my book, Oh My Stars, the Star Tribune did a story about book covers, and there were 5 books with that same cover. A Chris Bojalian book, and you know, they altered mine a little with the color and by having a guitar on the bottom, but I guess it's just too expensive to always have original art, which I mourn because, you know, unfortunately I've had original art for my past couple books, and it pleases me as a writer and as a reader.
So with regards to your male readers, Johnny in chat has said that you've got plenty of male fans. So good on you.
Jacobs, thank you. Let's talk for the hour.
And then John, different John, wants to have you describe your publishing journey and relationship to working with an editor.
You know, I have had really good luck. The hardest editing was with my first book, because I didn't know how much to fight for and how much to give up. And the particular editor, I don't know that she was that cognizant of Minnesota. I mean, she wondered if you could get a taxi cab in Minneapolis on New Year's Eve. And, you know, I would say, well, you know, we have a fleet. And so it got to some of her questions. You know, she was a good editor, but as I said, she just wasn't that aware of, I think she thought everything west of the East River was, you know, Amish or something. But so sometimes I'd like mess with her. And I remember the phone ringing once, and I raced upstairs and I was all winded, and it was this editor. And I said, oh, I'm so sorry. I was just out plowing the North 40, and, you know, dead silence. So your editor's idea is really the same as yours. They want what they hope will be the best book, as you do too. So in Patty Jane's House of Curl, I did have to excise a whole character, which was hard for me because I really liked this character. In other books, you know, I've gotten like 2-page letter with just suggestions and not demands, but what about this? What do you think about that? How about if? And so that allows me to ponder and, oh yeah, that would, you know, that scene really does need to be, you know, put earlier in the book. So I can't really say that I've had a hard time at all. I mean, I have writer friends who literally cry over what their editors are being asked to do. So knock on wood.
Thank you. One of the other earlier questions was, do you ever teach? And then it was a two-parter. How long did it take you? The questioner is assuming that you're supporting yourself with your writing right now. How long until you were able to support yourself with your writing?
I am able to support myself. That's more than my bra says. No, but yes, it took a long time. No, to get published. But then after I got published, even though I didn't get an advance, what I learned was you start seeing money right away. Then you don't, if it's sold to, like Germany or paperback rights. Whereas if you have an advance, you don't get any of that money back or monies later until you've paid off that advance. So yes, I've been fortunate that I've been able to support myself. What was the earlier part of the question?
And then do you ever teach?
Oh, do I ever teach? I have taught. And people have told me they've enjoyed my classes, but I feel like I should be one of the students, passing notes and, throwing paper airplanes. Because a part of me thinks, can writing really be taught? And I did go to the Loft, our fabulous literary center, when I was writing Patty Jane. And our assignments, I took a class, and our assignments were to read 20 pages of another student's work that week and then discuss it the following week. So I did learn, about what people liked, what they didn't like. But I think I'm a fun teacher, but, somebody might go away with Joyce Carol Oates as their teacher, so.
So we're getting close to our end times. So I want to bring us back sort of to more the general discussion. You said that what you love about libraries is that you're finding books that you weren't even looking for.
Yeah.
So I love that spirit of exploration. But the people today want to know, what are you reading right now? What should we be writing on our list that we should go check out from the library or buy to support the authors?
My book club is reading Ghetto Side by Jill Lavoie, and that's a nonfiction book set in LA. It's really good, hard to read, but really good. And then, I'm not always on my thriller kick, but I have been reading Dean Koontz's books about a female FBI agent on the run because she's discovered this conspiracy that's trying to alter the minds of people. And I think he's a really fun reader, and he values language. And so I like his metaphors, but he's certainly fast-paced, and I just like to wonder what I would do in that FBI agent's position. And I'd probably just go in the bathroom and lock the door, because what a life she's got. So yeah, and I have a stack of books in my other room that I got from the library. And of course the titles right now just fly through my head. But if I think of them soon, I'll let you know.
Well, thank you for the book title recommendations. Thank you for your comments, as well as answering all this random set of questions. I want to encourage all of our participants today to certainly go out and get a copy of Chronicles of a Radical Hag with recipes. And
Remember, it's not a memoir, it's a novel.
Not a memoir. And you always know, as a promise from Lorna, that they're always heart-rendering, laughing, make you feel good titles. So encourage people to read. And at this point, I'm going to turn it back to David and Loretta as we move from our wonderful speaker, thank you again, and move to Evy Nordley.
Now we'll turn to the Evy Nordley Award for Best Project by Friends of the Library. Named after a MALF co-founder whose spirited efforts guided the establishment of over 100 Friends organizations between 1979 and 1994, it is MALF's longest running recognition program. It's also the one that gets the most national attention. As just one example, winners and finalists for this prize are regularly invited to present at the library conferences of the Minnesota and American Library Associations. You are about to hear from each of the year's 4 finalists. Each is extremely impressive in their own right. MALF's judging panel places a high emphasis on innovation and replicability. And these projects, oh man, they have both traits in spades. But what is no less impressive is that number, 4. Here's what I mean by that. For nearly every year of the Evy Nordley Awards' long existence, the evaluating panel has winnowed the number of submissions to just 3 finalists. Frankly, with all the interruptions and challenges brought on by COVID, MALF's board wasn't sure that Friends would care to share anything as part of Evy Nordley this time around. Well, turning that expectation on its head, you blew them away with the number and caliber of submitted projects, and in particular for the creativity and resilience they demonstrate. And for that reason, they couldn't narrow the field down to just 3 friend groups and had to expand the field to 4 finalists. Without further ado, let's dive into the first. Flamingos may be native to Florida and the Caribbean, but just over the last 2 years, the distinctive pink birds have made quite a squawk across Austin, Minnesota. How do flamingos sound, I wonder? Anyway, bewildered and amused residents have the local Friends of the Library to thank. Board member Evy Carlton, who we might describe as caretaker of the flock, is here to tell us all about it.
Hello, my name is Evy Carlton. I'm the president of the Austin, Minnesota Friends of the Library. And last year in October of 2020, we did a Flock and Flamingo fundraiser. So this was an idea that we had gotten from the great land of Pinterest, so I can't lay claim to it. But the general idea is that people donate money to put flamingos on their friends or foes. We've had lawn for roughly 24 hours. Those who've been flocked get the opportunity to be able to flock another victim, again, paying a donation to the friends to make that happen. People who don't want the flamingos on their lawn can choose to pay for anti-flocking insurance. One of the things that is really nice about this particular fundraiser is that for the most part, it just kind of continues to snowball upon itself. It also is a challenge a little bit because it continues to snowball and sometimes you want to be done, but it worked out really well. Some materials that we had, flamingos, lots of them. We had around 80-ish flamingos. That was kind of really a good number. We had 3 flocks running basically at all times. It was a 12 flock flamingo, a 24 flock of flamingo, and 36 flock. And extras just in case something happens. We did have one house at one point that lost a couple of flamingos due to some teenagers, but that's how it goes. We also created yard signs. You can see the example over there on the right. You know, it just, you know, you've been flamingoed by the Friends of the Library to flock your friend or foe, contact, and then our email address. that went in each yard, just to continue to really publicize the library, publicize the friends, just being able to kind of get our name out there, maybe communities that haven't heard of us before. So we have 3 yard signs. We had one for each flock. Luckily, nothing ever happened to those because yard signs are surprisingly expensive. And then it's also good to have extra flamingo legs. Our last main material was bright pink paper. You can get a 650 sheet pack on Amazon for $16. That's where I printed off all of our materials on, of like, hey, you know, each house would get a letter saying you've been flamingoed. And it would say who sent them the flamingos, you know, contact information if they had questions or if they wanted to send the flamingos on to somebody else. That was all printed on really hot pink paper so that people would notice them and know what the fundraiser was about. So I do have some technical details on this one for you. I am actually comparing 2020 to 2021. We actually just finished up our 2021 flamingo flocking, and I wanted to kind of include that information as well to kind of show you what we changed as time went on. So in 2020, we had 4 different flock sizes: small, medium, large, and jumbo. And then you can see the prices listed there. The runtime was about 2 months, and that I can firmly blame on the jumbo flock. People loved the jumbo flock. I did not love the jumbo flock as much as other people did because it was 60 flamingos is a lot of flamingos, and so it was really challenging to get people to volunteer for that when they found out that it was such a large flock. It didn't fit in some people's cars. And then in 2021, we did change the flock sizes and the prices. We got rid of the jumbo flock entirely, which made our runtime a little bit shorter. It was about 6 weeks as opposed to 2 months. And then we had 15 volunteers that were pretty active. And then on this slide, I just have a lot of our advertisements that I was able to kind of create using a website. And so I was able to kind of like schedule a bunch of different Facebook posts and get everything going as quickly as possible. The other big question that I have about the flamingos is that our ordering options. So we used a lot of techniques to make sure that everyone who wanted to order a flock could. We had created a Google form, and there was a PayPal donation button and link in the order form, so they could just do PayPal giving and order the flamingos that way. We also had paper forms that I could email out to people if they weren't comfortable with the Google form. And then we have kind of like a night in the life of a flamingo volunteer. That picture on the right is actually 60 flamingos in a Prius. And so, like I said, 60 flamingos is a lot of flamingos. So basically it's, you know, they typically, they would drive to the first house for pickup around 6 or 7. We were pretty flexible on the time. Again, I always said, don't forget the legs. They would drive to the second house for drop off. You know, they would install the flamingos, drop off the informational sheet, order form, and the anti-flocking insurance at the front door. And then I always had our volunteers take a picture of the house and yard for delivery confirmation. And then that was pretty much it. So for money, our overall profit for this fundraiser in 2020 was just shy of $2,000, and we had 79 total orders. So we started flocking on October 12th and didn't stop until November 22nd. We did not take any breaks, and there were no days off. Our initial flamingo flock was partially donated to us, and we borrowed 75 flamingos from a local church who had done this fundraiser before. And so we were able to really lower the initial costs on the flamingos because flamingos are surprisingly expensive. Someone did actually end up deciding to flock our public library. So that one actually was on Halloween. We decided to do that as kind of like a Halloween prank for the library. So aside from like the financial impact, we had a ton of positive feedback from the community. people were messaging us on Facebook, emailing, and calling the library to kind of tell us how much fun it was to see the flamingos around town. Our Facebook posts were hitting over 500 views each day. And then this is just kind of like a review of the changes that we made for the flock in 2021. We eliminated the jumbo flock, we raised our prices. We did do a season change from late fall to summer. It did have unexpected consequences in that our volunteer block was not there. And then just some volunteer differences. We didn't have as many teenagers helping us out that kind of would like that kind of an activity. So we are going to continue doing this fundraiser, except this coming year in 2022, we're probably going to start in like early September, just after school starts, after the teachers tell their students about the United Way volunteer sign-up sheet and all that kind of stuff. So we, that's kind of one of the joys about doing a fundraiser like this, is that you learn a lot of really good life lessons as you're kind of trying to figure out how to make it work. If you want to contact me to talk more about the fundraiser and kind of more about my experiences with it, I've got our email address and then my cell phone number. I do work full time, so if you try to call me, please leave a voicemail and I will probably get back to you in the evening. Other than that, thank you very much for listening to my presentation.
Now, I hope you all brought road snacks, because we are about to travel from Austin in the far southeast corner of the state all the way up to the doorstep of the Boundary Waters. 2 hours north of Duluth, you will find the small but mighty town of Cook. Recently, library staff and partnering friends in Cook put on an impressive one book or community read program. And I think you'll agree that their strong showing puts to bed any misconception that only large communities and libraries can pull off a stellar community read. President Kathy Socraty and Treasurer Christy Saposi are here to teach us a thing or two.
Hello, I am Kathy Socraty, and I am the president of our Cook Public Libraries group, the Friends Group.
And I'm Christy Saposi. I am the treasurer of Friends of the Cook Public Library.
And our project is called One Book, One Community, and it is designed to create a winter book club for our adults and older teens, and to bring them together during the deep, dark winter months. By reading the same book, chosen by the patrons themselves, and participating in Crystal's blog regarding the book, a discussion begins and a sense of community develops. They are then physically brought together in our library 3 separate times to view 2 movies by the same author of the book, one of which is the book itself, and finally to actually discuss the book in person.
The Cook Public Library is a small rural library that serves a broad geographic area. During the summer, our number of patrons really swells, but during the winter, we go back to our small residential patrons. These are the ones who we really set out to reach with our One Book, One Community event. Our numbers are small compared to some of the really large libraries with a lot of resources, but the effect that we have on our patrons, it's huge. We can expand horizons by attending events and having great discussions about books. And really, isn't that what you want a library to do after all?
The idea came about to create something to do in the winter when everything quiets down and the weather keeps people apart at times. It was hoped that this would bring our patrons of all ages together by reading and discussing the same book, and by creating a sense of community among them all. But how to choose the book? During the summer of 2019, Crystal set up a challenge to vote for your favorite book from book synopses that she had placed around the library. At the end of each week, the winning book was announced, and a new round began. Once these rounds were finished, the winning books competed against each other until the final book was chosen. This challenge included 104 books, 16 weeks of voting, with a total of 1,428 votes. Quite impressive for a small community library in northern Minnesota.
So who would
Would
win?
Then Agatha Christie's Death on the Nile came to be the book to read by all.
Our library director, Crystal Phillips, put together a package of reading events, and this would be the thing that really drew our community together. Because it was winter, because we're in a small town, patrons, a lot of patrons decided that, well, okay, I guess we actually do need something to read during the winter. And so on January 2nd, Crystal held the book launch event. And these events, we were, as friends, we were really proud to sponsor all of these events. Everyone in attendance received their own copy of Death on the Nile. And, actually kind of shared the book that they thought that they would be reading, even though it didn't win. It was fun for us to follow along with our online blog that Crystal Phillips created. This was great if you weren't quite sure what had happened in each chapter, or because it was an Agatha Christie mystery, I learned that there's a lot of characters involved in her stories, and that's something that I wasn't familiar with. So it was very helpful to follow along with Crystal's blog.
It was. And in the end, we successfully engaged all readers of all ages to actively read and participate in our One Book, One Community project.
Our friends of the library promoted this project, and funds, we promoted the movie license that enabled Crystal to be able to show the movie. And we also, we were able to purchase the Death on the Nile books for patrons, and of course have one for our library's collection. We also purchased treats and beverages for all of these winter reading events. As friends, we helped to organize the volunteers to assist the library director to set up and clean up events. Again, Cook is a very small library. We have our library director and a part-time staff person. And so the friends groups, we do try to help out as much as we can to set up and clean up events. And of course, to be able to promote and participate in all the fun of reading these events.
That's sometimes the best part. We are very grateful for our community partners. We have a very generous grocery store. It's Zupp's grocery store, and they give us very nice discounts, which we appreciate very much. Whenever we need something for the library, they are right there offering a nice discount for us. And our VFW of Cook gave us baskets to put the popcorn in, paper products for the movie night. So it felt really official, like you were in a movie theater watching the movie itself. And like Christy said, our librarian, Crystal, and Margaret, her staff member, are always very actively involved in these nights.
In the end, on March 5th, our patrons gathered to discuss the book. And really, when we got together, it was fun to see the turnaround of people. Those who were maybe not sure that they would like the book turned into pretty avid fans. And I was one of them. I wasn't sure that I would like it. And then in the end, I did enjoy the book.
And I was the same.
By getting people of various backgrounds together, we were really able to have great discussions. Some people were huge Agatha Christie fans, some people were not. And so that just promoted that feeling of community and the feeling of togetherness.
We evaluate our program by the degree of participation of our patrons and by the comments they make after it has ended. They're eager to let us know if they like the book or how they felt about the discussions or the movies. When you know that the project wants to be continued in another year, then that's another sure sign of success. And we have had people asking, when are you going to do another one? When are you going to do another one? And we are. We currently have set up the voting round 1 for our next One Book, One Community. That will be our winter read in 2022.
I think I'm voting for Stephen King this time.
I got Dan Brown on my mind. So we hope you've enjoyed our presentation.
Grand Rapids Area Library is among the handful in Minnesota that boasts a permanent Friends bookstore on site. I've been there, as a matter of fact. Ordinarily, this year-round stream of income is the Friends' golden goose, with proceeds bankrolling much of what the organization does for the library. When the pandemic brought an abrupt and protracted halt to sales, however, the board realized they needed to think beyond their comfort zone. On behalf of the Friends leadership team, Mary Jo Wimmer is here to tell us how they exactly did that.
Hello, everyone. This is Mary Jo Wimmer. I'm with the Grand Rapids Area Library Friends. So I want to talk to you about the note card fundraiser that we did this past year. The problem was that the library was closed to the public, and the only access people had to it was through the drive-up window. And whoever thought a library would have a drive-up window, but we do. And that meant that our bookstore that was operated by our Friends group was closed to the public, which meant our golden goose was no longer laying eggs. And so, you know, reading gives us someplace to go, and we have to stay where we are. And lots of people were using the drive-up window, which was wonderful, but we were not making any money. And so we were not able to provide support to the library in our normal habit. Along came an artist from Cloquet named Adam Swanson. And you can look up his website. He has lots of prints and different art that he creates, and much of it is focused on the beautiful Northwoods. So he was commissioned to paint this mural on the side of the library. When you drive into the library parking lot, this is the first thing you see. And it's beautiful, and it struck us as just so perfect. So we reached out to Mr. Swanson and asked him if we could collaborate with him on a fundraising project. He had never had his prints made into greeting cards before, but he was very generous and very gracious with us as we proceeded to work together on this project. We had a committee that selected 8 different views that we wanted to put into card packets as a fundraiser. So this was all done locally. We had our local artist, we had local art featuring Northern Minnesota themes, and we had local printing from Minuteman Press. And, you know, this was a time, hopefully that we don't go back to, where businesses locally were really struggling. And so this helped that business as well. We also had support from Shaw Florist in Grand Rapids, which supplied us with corsage bags, of all things, to package the cards in. So that was really nice too, to have them packaged nicely with a ribbon around them for sale. We used our Facebook page, the library website, and the local paper for publicity of the project. And this is what the back of the cards look like. So we wanted to make sure to feature our Friends logo and Mr. Swanson's information as well for people who might be interested in more of his work. These are the fronts of the cards we made. I said 8 different cards, and we packaged them 8 to a package, and we sold them for $20 a package. So you can see that there's some whimsy to these. We don't have many penguins in northern Minnesota, although I'm sure there are a few. But this is kind of a theme of his. And we went through all of his copious amounts of prints on his website and selected these 8 to go forward. We have talked about doing this project again. And if we do, we would select different artwork just to get some variety. So we sold them in boxes of 8 with envelopes. We printed 200 boxes and sold 180 of them so far. The price was $20 each, and the royalties we paid to Mr. Swanson were $4.50 each. They were sold exclusively through the drive-up window at the Grand Rapids Area Library, so advertising was very important. I want to say a little bit more about Mr. Swanson. He was the 2020 Minnesota State Arts Board Initiative Grant recipient. So that was kind of nice too, that this was helping him launch his career. And okay, and so this has kind of become our pride and joy as we move ahead in finding ways to support our local library. And we have enjoyed this project, and we hope that you have enjoyed learning about it. Thank you so much.
Last but not least, we'll hear from Terry Khalil of the Becker County Friends Library, which is based out of Detroit Lakes. As you'd guess from the name, even if you've never visited, lake life is central to Detroit Lakes' identity. So you see, it wasn't too difficult for the community to land on theming for its recent sesquicentennial celebration. Terry's going to tell us all about how the Friends made the most of this opportunity, bringing exposure and new visitors to their beautiful downtown library.
Hi everyone, I'm Terry Khalil. I'm a friend of the Becker County Friends of the Library here in Detroit Lakes, Minnesota. Welcome to Unlimited Curiosity. Gonna be funky from now on. This is a story about a community art project by and for the people to create 150 unique sailboats with 150 original pieces of art to celebrate Detroit Lakes sesquicentennial. This is also an opportunity for the Friends of the Becker County Library. We have a goal of becoming a more visible community partner. This project gives us an opportunity to be the downtown art destination. It gives us a tremendous opportunity to extend our footprint well beyond the walls that make up the library and to increase traffic in the post-COVID era. The Detroit Lakes Library's role in community art dates back to our centennial in 2013. In 2013, we celebrated the original Carnegie Library's 100th year of continuous operation as a public library. As an outgrowth of that celebration, we commissioned local artist and sculptor Hans Gilsdorf to create a unique piece of art to adorn the front entrance of our more modern entrance. The title of his piece, as you can see here, is Once Upon a Time. I've enlisted 2 summer visitors to be your tour guide as we talk about community art and our project. Avery and Lucas, take it away. When we were presented with the opportunity to invest in a sailboat, we quickly invited our friends to join us. We said, hey, make a nominal contribution, help us buy a sailboat that we can decorate to celebrate the sesquicentennial and generate some interest in the library and our artwork. It took about 3 or 4 days, but we raised 167% of our goal. Let's buy 2, we said, 1 for inside, 1 for outside. Lucas is showing off the inside one in the children's library. He's pointing out his favorite thing in all the world, dinosaurs. The Friends of the Library invests in art that inspires. What you see here, unlimited curiosity. These are all made of glass. Every single piece of the 4 sides of the sailboat. This piece was commissioned by the Friends and inspired, created, and hundreds and hundreds of hours invested by Becky Mitchell, a stained glass artist. It sits outside the front door on Washington Avenue, which is our downtown Main Street, and adorns the original Carnegie Library. The Friends are also investing in art that intrigues, and we're back to Avery and Lucas. Avery found a bone, or what she thinks is a bone anyhow. Lucas, he's still hung up on dinosaurs, and this piece, Gonna Be Funky From Now On, was created by Eric Johnson for the Friends of the Library. The Friends also invest in art that educates. One particular friend of the library also commissioned a 3rd sailboat. It's a small one, as you can see. It stands 2.5 feet tall. This one is entitled We the People. It's a tribute to the late Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and it's complete with pearls, her famous collars, the lace, and many quotes from Justice Ginsburg. That's sitting up in the Carnegie Library in our youth section. A 4th piece, also purchased by a friend of the library, is another small sailboat that will arrive in January. It's on display somewhere else in town right now. This art refreshes the mind and the body. Its title is My Favorite Places to Read. And you can see the lake, the campsite, a hammock, and of course a picnic. That one will go on permanent display early 2022. The Friends are also investing in art that brings people together. And in 2021, the Lake Agassiz Regional Library, of which Detroit Lakes is a proud hub, turned 60 with one heck of a party.
Everybody smiling, pretend you're having fun. Well, everybody smiling, look like you're having fun. Well, make believe the entertainment doesn't stink. Well, come on, everybody, let's make it look like we having fun. Well, Terry's taking video here tonight. Come on, everybody, and smile just right. Come on, everybody, let's have fun at the library. Oh, baby, come on, everybody, and have some fun. Have some fun. You put the books on the run. We're giving away library cards today. That's right, my friends. You can get library cards 2 for 1 today. They are free until midnight tomorrow. And after midnight tomorrow, they go up to free. How much is that, Greta? Free! I say fur, you say e, fur. E! Fur! E! That sounds furry. That sounds, yeah, not furry, free. That's a hard one to do.
That was musician and entertainer Tim Agabratten, who provided a concert for the streets, the people, and the community, all centered around our new sailboat. And it featured food trucks, painted faces, lots of great fun and music. And by the way, that was a very impromptu, off the cuff, original song by musician Tim Megabrotten on behalf of the Detroit Lakes Public Library, and we are honored and thrilled with that. With that, unlimited curiosity, gone be funky from now on. I'd like to thank the Minnesota Association of Library Friends for honoring the Becker County Friends of the Library. It's an unbelievable honor to be nominated for the Evy Nordley Award. We thank you. We encourage all libraries in Minnesota, think outside your four walls, find ways to be more engaged with your community so that you too can inspire.
Thanks again to Terry, Mary Jo, Kathy and Christy and Bethy for sharing your fantastic stories. Congratulations to each of you. Now for the moment of truth. Everybody, second place. Oh. And a $500 prize goes to Grand Rapids Area Library Friends. Congratulations. And here's a fun fact about your runner-up. Grand Rapids won the Evy Nordley Award back in 2019 for their innovative pop-up book sales. I suspect that MALF will be hearing from them again. And our winner and the recipient of $1,000 and a custom plaque is Friends of the Austin Public Library for their Flock and Flamingos fundraiser. Congratulations. Now here's a fun factoid about your winner. They were runners-up in 2019, the same year when Grand Rapids took home the gold. Their contender that year was Murder at the Mansion, which certainly piques my curiosity. You can read more about that project and find case studies on all winners and finalists dating back to 2013 on MALF's website, mnlibraryfriends.org. Thanks again to the friends in both Cook and Grand Rapids, who will also be receiving a monetary prize from MALF in the coming weeks. And all of our presenters today will get a personalized copy of my latest book, Chronicles of a Radical Hag, with recipes. And it's not a spoiler to say that one of the characters is given the highest honor of having a library named after her.
Allow me to add my thanks and congratulations to Bethy Carlton and her cohorts with the Austin Friends of the Library. I wouldn't be surprised if we see flocks of flamingos spring up across other communities in the following years. Staking plastic birds into lawns in the wee hours of the morning is just one example of how Friends volunteers go above and beyond in service to their libraries. Profiling these many and varied contributions is the chief purpose of MALF's aptly named Stand Up for Standout Friends recognition program. It's now in its 6th year, and our Hall of Fame is inching towards 80 recipients. And as a former recipient of that award, I can say what a great honor it is. As a sidebar, if you are featured as part of this next video, your segment and some other goodies from MALF as well will be sent to you later in October. Now, let's roll the video.
Mary Thrash has been a stalwart leader of the Friends of the Bemidji Public Library for more than 30 years. Her contributions to our cause seem countless. Marquee achievements include chairing the Friends when the Bemidji Public Library built its current facility in 1994 and 95. She has also proven herself a key ingredient to the enduring success of our on-site Red Door bookstore, one of the Friends' biggest moneymakers. Mary's lifelong passion for libraries and the equitable access of information that they enable grow from experiencing injustices and disappointments in her youth. In her segregated school district, county authorities promised weekly library service to every school, hers included. In practice, however, this service started out as erratic and eventually stopped altogether, at least in the most disadvantaged neighborhoods, where children needed and craved this lifeline most. But with friends and advocates like Mary, we work to assure that such injustices will not be repeated.
Judy Raridan and Rita Hammond are the Friends of the Brainerd Public Library's indispensable book sale ladies. In a typical year, they head up not one, but 3 annual book sales, 2 full sales and 1 children's sale. These generate between $15,000 and $18,000 of our organizational's budget. Obviously, the last year and a half have been anything but normal. But Judy and Rita have been far from idle. Since the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic, the pair have created new and innovative opportunities for our members and the Brainerd community at large. To purchase books, all in compliance with ever-changing CDC and local guidelines on gatherings, which is no small feat. Remarkably, Rita, Judy, and a small group of loyal volunteers have raised more than $12,000 since October 2020, allowing the Brainerd Friends to maintain our financial commitment to our beloved library. Thank you, Rita and Judy.
Cook Public Library has an unofficial mascot, the majestic moose. A moose statue can be found outside our small library in rural St. Louis County. A taxidermy moose graces the inside, and the animal can be found throughout our branded materials. Credit for this last goes to Standout friend and artist extraordinaire, Josh Olson. The Friends of Cook Public Library count on Josh to craft brochures and flyers for a host of occasions. Recent examples include our winter and summer reading programs, the library's Quilt Month, a fundraiser for new carpeting, and our fun Cozy Mystery Play Series. For this last, Josh has also shown his thespian side and pitched in as a character actor. In a town of Cook size, the library really does depend on its Friends of the Library, and we in turn rely on Josh Olson.
The Friends of Edina Community Library feel extraordinarily fortunate to count Connie Brecken among its leaders. Over the years, she has served with distinction as our president, not just once, but over 4 consecutive terms. She has also taken a turn as both vice president and volunteer coordinator. Connie shares her passion and experience as a Friends leader with every onboarding board member. In addition to those officer and mentor duties, our Standout friend is an exemplary project manager as well. Most recently, she shepherded a large Friends bequest earmarked for the design and construction of a public art installation. Visitors to the Edina Community Library are now greeted by the photo-worthy Bear and Bunny sculptural bench in the front entry plaza.
Pat Fiddledye is a standout supporter of the Grand Rapids Area Library. Pat served on the committee that chose artwork for the new building when it was built. Pat works with the Minneapolis Children's Museum and a consortium of nonprofits to bring a display of Grand Rapids heritage to the library. Boat, bait shop, and related equipment invites small visitors into the children's library. Pat helped create the author's quilt as a Friends fundraiser. The signatures of Minnesota authors were incorporated into the quilt that now adorns the library wall. Pat served on the Friends board for many years and continues as the go-to person when it's time to plan a special event. Pat lays claim to a unique contribution. She is Tracy Campa's mother, and Tracy is our children's librarian. Pat became Grandma Pat and helps Tracy with the summer children's story time. Pat remains active with the organization. Whether it's working at a book sale or sending out membership notices, we count on her to support the library.
The pandemic and mandatory lockdowns were devastating to library services everywhere. With little guidance from government agencies, library directors were initially left to go it alone when determining how to safely operate their facilities. Most opted to simply remain closed. Our director, Patricia Schaefer-Gottschalk, displayed true leadership qualities by rallying her team and providing some level of service continuity to cast and patrons at the beginning of and all throughout the pandemic. It was a welcome bit of normal in an abnormal time. Because Pat's commitment went so far above and beyond, we consider her more than just our director. She is a true friend.
Karen Jackowitz is one of the Friends of the Moorhead Library's longest-serving board members and one of the most dedicated volunteers you will find. Karen spends several hours each week sorting and pricing donated books and has spent the past year improving book sales by working with online booksellers and organizing off-site and outdoor book sales. Karen also coordinates events such as the Outlander Book Club and has helped with countless other events and fundraisers. After serving as book sale co-chair and vice president for the past 10 years, Karen became president this year, and we can't wait to see what she does next.
Debbie Navarro is an educator by training, yet as her decade and more of service with the Friends and Foundation of the Northfield Public Library clearly shows, she is a lifelong learner as well. To offer just one example, she took on and redefined the position of membership coordinator in 2012, and she stayed engaged with membership until 2020. In that time, the library and the Friends undertook a massive capital campaign to fund a needed renovation. This was followed by extensive fundraising for a new bookmobile. Major endeavors like this turned what was originally a modest position into a major commitment. But Debbie never shied away from new or expanded duties. Another example of this is her stewardship of the Friends Scholarship Program, recognizing high school library volunteers. Debbie formed a committee and built this important initiative up from nothing, and it continues strong today. Thank you, Debbie, for being such a wonderful friend.
Friends of the Ramsey County Libraries has grown from an all-volunteer library advocacy organization with 50 members in 1979 to a fundraising powerhouse with over 800 members, 3 part-time staff, and a 20-member board of directors. It took leadership and vision to make that happen, and Doug Smith has been one of our most dedicated leaders for over 20 years. Doug is a lifetime Friends member. He has served as a board member and treasurer for 9 years and currently chairs the Finance and Audit Committees. He built our accounting system and annual audit processes, established our financial policies, managed the money for 3 used bookstores and 4 library capital campaigns, and grew our endowment from $350,000 to over $1 million today. It is a pleasure to work with someone who believes so strongly in the importance of libraries and literacy for the community. Thank you, Doug. We truly couldn't do it without you.
Mary Ann Sandine grew up in Stillwater and returned to Stillwater schools as an elementary school teacher from 1964 to 2004. Mary Ann has been involved with supporting the Stillwater Public Library continuously for over 30 years on not one, but 3 support groups. Wherever she volunteered, she became a leader. Beginning in 1988, she sat on the Board of Trustees, where she also served as president. In 1998, she was a founder of the Friends Group, and she sits as president of the group today. Later, she became one of the founding directors of the Stillwater Public Library Foundation. Since 2002, the twice-a-year book sales of the Friends provided over $160,000 in support to the library. It is a group effort, but one where Mary Ann's touch is clearly felt. As Stillwater's longtime retired library director, Lynn Bertelmio, said, Mary Ann is the constant in the Friends Group, carries a sense of history, and works diligently to forward the Friends and the library. Over the years, she has contributed to many projects, such as the restoration of Stillwater's Carnegie Library in 2006 and the installation of hearing loops in the library. Mary Ann has also made an impression on the state stage as well, serving on the board of the Minnesota Association of Library Friends in 2014.
As the old saying goes, if you want something done, ask a busy person. Georgette Schumacher is that busy person for the Friends of the Wabasha Public Library. Although she works a full-time job, she has made time for us in a number of ways. She holds distinction as both the past co-president and founding board member of our group. Georgette is also the most computer savvy of our friends and can be relied on whenever there is a graphic design need or other techie task that requires attention. Her creations range from eye-popping event flyers and ticket designs to more prosaic, but no less important things like spreadsheet templates and online sign-up sheets. Georgette's ability to juggle her many obligations and willingness to share her gifts make her a standout friend.
Emily Tipton joined the board of the Friends of the Winona Public Library in 2019, a remarkably short time ago considering her extraordinary contributions to our programming reach and fundraising capacity. Emily almost single-handedly brought Dolly Parton's Imagination Library to Winona. At the onset, she secured tens of thousands of dollars in grant funding and donations to bring this nationally reputed literacy program to our area. When the program kicked off formally in June of 2020, we had hoped to register 1/6 of Winona County's eligible children, ages birth through 5. We surpassed that goal in a single day. During a year when it was difficult to connect with the community from a distance, this program provided a way to reach families across the county. The work doesn't stop there, as the program requires $20,000 each year to continue. However, this challenge has boosted Emily in her efforts, and she has already raised the funds needed to continue getting books in the hands of children for the next few years.
Are you impressed with these volunteers? Because I am. Before we sign off, allow me to share a word or two about what's coming up next for MALF. Back in June, a good crowd joined us for our summer workshop called Making New Friends, Volunteer Recruitment and Cultivation. Beth Steinhorn, president of Colorado-based VQ Volunteer Strategies, led this 90-minute session. If enticing and training new volunteers is a problem for your organization, but you missed that program in real time, you can catch up via our YouTube channel. See the Zoom chat for a direct link. Let's be honest with ourselves though. Recruitment and cultivation are only half the battle. Friends organizations like volunteer-run charities of all types often have difficulty retaining new talent as well. National statistics show that this trend is unlikely to change anytime soon. Beth Steinhorn will return this winter to tell us how we can defy the data and nurture a volunteer base that is likely to stick around. Staying Friends Volunteer Retention 101 is slated for the lunch hour on Tuesday, December 7th. As that date draws a little nearer, we will have additional information in our newsletter and on our website, mnlibraryfriends.org. However, if you want to set it and forget it, you can register right now and here. See the Zoom chat for details. Last, while those incredibly imaginative and varied stories about flamingos, sailboats, chickadee murals, and Agatha Christie are fresh in your mind, we want to plant a seed early about the 2022 cycle of the Evy Nordley Award. Common project types include successful fundraisers, literature or literacy events, membership drives, and advocacy campaigns. But as you just saw firsthand, the sky is the limit. Projects implemented anytime after January 1st, 2021 are eligible. Check our website right after New Year's for an application and additional eligibility details. Last of all, take note of the post-event survey in the Zoom document comments. If you have a moment to take it now, all the better. Otherwise, we'll share it with all attendees in a recap email shortly. That's all we have time for this morning. Thanks for being a friend.